This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hi, welcome to episode 297 of the CineSnob Podcast. I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Cody, it is, we're in the thick of post NBA draft free agent signing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still like at the stroke of midnight on a certain day? I can't remember.
July 1st, yeah.
Yeah. The big news for us as Spurs fans is the Spurs signing veteran point guard Chris Paul.
Yeah.
Who was released by the Warriors. Played for, he got his start with the Pelicans, right? Or when they were still the Hornets?
Yes, I believe that's where he started, but spent some time with the Clippers, the Suns, and then Golden State Warriors. He also played in Houston.
Oh, yeah,
and Oklahoma City for 1 year.
Yeah, wild. I mean, obviously not the superstar signing, but...
No, it's his 20th season that we get him in. So.
But a veteran point guard who still, I guess, has a little gas in the tank.
Sure.
The idea...
Nicknamed the Point God. That's his nickname.
Yeah. Had some famous battles with the Spurs over the years. I believe the last one was the Clippers in Game 7 or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember those the Hornets battles in particular, where it was him and David West.
Oh,
and,
I forgot about David West. Shit.
Yeah, and but you know, I mean, I think in particular the reason to be excited is that, you know, famously, Chris Paul has been really great at turning. You know, like famously, Lob City is a big thing where. Mm-hmm. It happened with Tyson Chandler in New Orleans, and then it happened with, you know, Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan and the Clippers. I mean, DeAndre Jordan was an amazing player under Chris Paul because he just fed him all day long. And so the potential there with Wemby is pretty cool. And it's only a 1 year deal. So, you know, I think the Spurs know that this free agent class this year kind of sucks, and they're kind of gearing up for next year where it's supposed to be huge. So they can put a more competitive team on the floor this year and then be free of, you know, those financial obligations next year. So,
is it true? And I've seen this pop up once. I think there's supposed to be a like they'll trade him to a contender at some point. Have you heard that rumor?
Yeah, he has a very tradable contract. So if the Spurs decide it's not worth keeping him around, it should be relatively easy to trade him to a contender at the deadline. His salary, I mean, he was going to make $30 million with the Clippers this season. But they, you know, waived him, and that released him of his guarantee. So he was taking 11.
Warriors, right?
Oh, excuse me, the Warriors. Yes.
Yeah. I'd forgotten that he was part of that like famously vetoed trade.
Yeah.
In the was it 2011? I can't remember when that was.
Yeah, it was.
It was like one of David Stern's last things, right? Last big things. Yeah.
The deal was supposed to be...
I'm reading it right now, yeah.
Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom for Chris Paul.
Man, I don't know. I don't know who gets the better... Well, that was... Oh, man. I don't know. I mean, they still won titles with Gasol and Odom.
Yeah, it looks like it was actually a three-way trade. That would have been Chris Paul to the Lakers, Gasol to the Rockets, and Odom... Kevin Martin and Scola to the New Orleans.
Do you remember when Luis Scola was supposed to be like the next big thing? Like he was like the rumored Spurs guy. Like they've stashed him.
Yeah.
And they could never come to a deal with him for whatever reason. And
yep. It would have been interesting, to say the least, to have him on those teams instead of Splitter, who ultimately ended up being the guy at that point.
Oh, was that who it was? I was thinking it was Fabrizio Oberto, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Oh, you know, it was at first Oberto and then Splitter. Yeah. But I think they both would have played during Scola's prime years.
Reminiscing about times gone by that still didn't yield any titles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm personally like, oh, this is a nice little thing. It's not expected to like bring the team a title or anything, but maybe it'll get us to 40 wins or something like that.
Well, you know, it gives you know, a competent point guard to Wemby, which was the big criticism last year, is that, nobody knew how to get him the ball. That will change that situation. And then, if Castle, the Spurs draft pick, is supposed to be the point guard of the future, it gives him a really great mentor for a season. So, I mean, I think it's win-win. I don't think that this hurts the Spurs in any kind of way, especially on a 1-year deal. Like, they need bodies. It's a veteran presence. There's like no vets on the team right now. So,
yeah. I mean, he does this. I wonder, does this change the age of the league? I mean, excuse me, the age of the team, the average age of the team. Like, I know it does, but like, does it bring him out of the youngest team in the league?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Because he's literally old enough to be the father of a lot of these players.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what about his brother, Cliff?
I don't know if they're twins or not.
I thought they were twins.
I mean, I guess one has a mustache and one doesn't. So
it's like the Sklar brothers.
Yeah.
Like one of them wears glasses, the other one has a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, reasonably excited for that. I mean, Dallas gets better with Paul George and maybe
Paul George went to.
Sorry, not Paul George. Klay Thompson. Paul George went to
Philly.
Maybe they can not crap out again, but
it's Philly. You never know.
Whatever. All right. Anything else? We got a little chided for talking basketball and being disinterested in a movie last week, so maybe we should wrap up the basketball talk.
I say we double down. Let's turn this into a basketball podcast.
Yeah, fuck it. What do you think about I had a conversation. I was telling you about this. I had a conversation with a fellow open micer comedian the other day about the WNBA, and she was talking about like the she was talking about it. The modern terms, like is it the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese like blood feud that happens all the time?
Yeah.
And she was complaining that the like that every time Caitlin Clark gets a flagrant foul on her, that it becomes like a huge news story. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, like if LeBron was getting a flagrant foul, like being targeted every night, like yes, it would be the top story.
Yeah.
And then I started talking about like the history of the league, and she like had no idea. She's like, "Oh, I just started following." I'm like, "Well, what the fuck are we talking about?"
Yeah.
She didn't want to be mansplained to, which is fair.
That's fair. And which you were trying to do, and
no. I was literally just bringing up like I was like, oh yeah, the Houston Comets, was it Comets?
Yeah,
were like the first champion team, and they're just gone.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, I have no idea. No. I guess there are newcomer WNBA fans that are women as well, which is it's a refreshing equality, I think. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I don't have anything else to talk about basketball.
That's okay.
I guess we should talk about movies on our movie podcast.
All right, if we must.
Here we go.
Here are this week's reviews.
Except we have A Quiet Place Day 1.
You can't have a cat in here.
It's a service cat.
We have to get out of the city.
This is a prequel to A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2. The first two films were directed by John Krasinski. This is directed by, I forget his name, but the guy who made Pig with Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Obviously, a whole new cast. You see Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. Oh, you get a little Jaimin Hansu, who I'd forgotten was in A Quiet Place Part 2.
Yes.
So, anyway, tell us about Quiet Place Day 1 and what you thought of it, Cody.
Sure. So this is essentially a prequel to the first two movies that takes place on the first day of sort of the I don't know, would you call it, like an attack or the
I guess it's an alien invasion.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. An alien invasion
Yeah.
that features and surrounds the character played by Lupita Nyong'o, who is like a terminally ill cancer patient in hospice, and they're they end up out on sort of like a field trip kind of thing when all of this happens, and then she and her cat end up sort of bumping into Joseph Quinn's character, and they sort of work together to try to stay alive and eventually get to an escape boat, and it's really more of kind of like a character study, I think, more so than anything else, in that you sort of see her character sort of cope with like the really only driving narrative here is that she wants pizza, and like that's basically the narrative thrust of why they're kind of roaming around New York, and then you get to see kind of their connection with sort of like the action or thriller sequences of trying to escape the extraterrestrial characters. So yeah, I am a little bit torn on the film, because on one hand I do think that it's an effective self-contained story within this sort of universe that they've established. And it does sort of effectively tell follow this character. I think the performances are really good across the board. I think Lupita Nyong'o is particularly good in it, and Joseph Quinn is good for his part too. I think the issue that I ran into was it feels repetitive at this point, where I feel like it's been sort of like the same kind of sequences for now 3 movies of just sort of this thing where they have to be quiet, they're being chased by the aliens, they run into close calls, and then sort of like rinse and repeat. And so I didn't find like any of the sort of like alien type stuff particularly effective. I mean, there's the typical sort of like close calls and tense escapes, and I think they're effective. Like they're effectively played out. But again, it just we talk a lot about like movies or sequels in particular feeling necessary. And for me, this feels like not completely necessary, even though I think it accomplishes what it's setting out to do. So I think there's a difference between like successful and feeling necessary. And to me, it just kind of falls short of that kind of thing, especially because, there's no real narrative thrust here. I don't think there's really much in the form of like themes or like thematic elements of it that feel sort of like comment like it's a commentary or sort of like a analogous to like everyday life, and so I just kind of found myself a little bit like disengaged with the story itself, and I in my opinion, this is the weakest of the 3.
Really?
Yeah, I really liked Quiet Place 2.
I barely remember the second movie.
Yeah. But I just think the sort of premise of everything is running a little thin here.
Sorry, were you done? I don't want to.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
I was leery of a prequel, and I will say, like, while this is set, it's set before the first film. It's the day the alien invasion happens. It's not really a prequel in the sense that you come to expect, where everything's going to get explained.
Right.
And I think that's a nice change of pace. And I will say that I really like this for what it is, which is just sort of a little character study. It reminds me of like when you have this like a long running TV show or something, and you get like this one-off episode.
It's like a bottle episode.
Yeah, not a bottle episode as much as it is like Well, see, I'm thinking of bottle episode using the same characters.
This is like an episode of Lost where you get to introduce to like two characters, and it's Nikki and Paolo.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think more successful than Nikki and Paolo, but yeah, where you're introduced to this like side thing happening. The Sopranos did it several times too, where you're introduced to this side thing happening while that's related to the main story, but it's not part of the main story. And I liked it for a character study. I think it was really, really well done. I think there's a cat in the movie that I think really kind of drives the humanity part of it. That it's Lupita Nyong'o taking care of her cat, and like kind of the mission of her at certain times becomes to protect that cat. With her terminal condition, her being in hospice when the movie begins, like, she has no real survival skill, no real like drive to survive, which I think is a different point of view for this movie. Like I said, I don't remember much about the second movie as much as it was just kind of a continuation that I think solved the problem, right? Didn't they figure out how to kill the aliens? I believe so, right?
I think so.
Yeah, like high frequency noises. Look, so none of this really holds up to scrutiny, like the science of it all. I think this movie, I really enjoyed it. I like Lupita Nyong'o a lot. I like Joseph Quinn a lot. I think they do well with what they have in this small scale kind of intimate story. Like, it's really just about, her. Basically, she's trying to like recapture one last moment of happiness in her life before the world ends, and Joseph Quinn's character is helping her do that. And then he gets set on his way. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing is, and where we kind of differ a little bit, is like you mentioned that you like the idea that it's like a prequel, but it doesn't like answer any questions or provide anything like that. And I think for me, that's where the sort of like justifying its existence part gets a little bit tricky for me, because I don't think it adds anything to like this world that they have created, especially because, like the stuff that you find out about like the creatures is stuff you already know from having watched the first two, like the idea that like, like first and foremost, like you have to be quiet. They like immediately know and figure that part out. And then also the idea that they don't respond well to water is also something that they immediately and somehow know. So like there's nothing to kind of figure out there, and it's really entirely dependent on the character study of it all. And again, for me, the character study is like, again, effectively done. Like, again, this would be like a good episode of a Quiet Place TV show. But for me, like, I just did not find myself invested in the goings on of what was happening.
Yeah, I think the story as it stands now, being marketed as a prequel, I don't think works. Just because it's not a prequel. I mean, it is a prequel, but there's no.
In a chronological sense, it's a prequel, but that's about it.
Right. Like if this took place like in the middle of whatever, because it's like 473 days or something, like is the first two films, because they're like consecutive days. It took the military and scientists a long time to figure out how to kill these fucking things, which is it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. But I don't know. I left kind of really enjoying it. I don't recall enjoying the second film that much. I felt it was a little busy because it basically subs Cillian Murphy in for John Krasinski, whose character dies in the first film, and I don't know. It's been shit that came out in 2020. Wow, time flies. I would have said 2 years ago, but in this hellscape we live in, Cody, time flies. Anyway, what's your grade for A Quiet Place Day One?
Yeah, I think I give it a B-, but it's sort of a reluctant one. It's more of one where I'm looking at things like as objectively as possible, trying to answer the question of like, is it successful at what it's trying to do? Is it a quality version of that? So I do give it a B-. That being said, it's a movie that didn't do anything for me at all, I don't think.
Well, I'm going to give it a B. I did enjoy it. I don't think that it really fills the void of a prequel, if that's what you're looking for. I don't know who's really looking for a prequel to this story.
Yeah.
At all. If it had been like if they want to do if they did like an anthology series, like a TV series about this, that'd be great. But
yeah, which is interesting because in A Quiet Place too, doesn't it open with the first day with
they're
John
like at a
Krasinski and
baseball
Emily
game
Blunt?
or something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, they did figure it out very quickly what happened.
Like almost immediately.
Yeah, it's like the National Guard is telling them like they be quiet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why don't you just like lure them somewhere with music and then just blow the shit out of them? Because they die. Like they die easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to our next movie, Janet Planet.
She was in a relationship with Avi.
The guy with the beard?
Then she broke things off with him, but well, I wouldn't go so far as to call it a cult, and Regina insists it isn't, and they're actually really wonderful.
What's it called?
Good question. A group of people who all gather around and maybe worship someone, like he's a religious figure or something. And they usually all live together. And these people do all live together at the farm. And she's slept with a lot of... Hold on, what is that? Oh, fuck. Oh my God.
What is it?
I need to find my tweezers.
What is it? It's still alive. Die, Tick, die.
This is a very lo-fi drama starring Julianne Nicholson, directed by Annie Baker, who I'm not familiar with, although I did read that she is her sister-in-law is Greta Gerwig. So
Yeah.
Tell us about Janet Planet, Cody, and what you thought of it.
Yeah, so Annie Baker, this is Annie Baker's debut film, but Annie Baker is a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, and so shifting into feature filmmaking here, and it is very lo-fi, very kind of simple, bare bones kind of movie that follows an 11-year-old girl and her mom, and sort of the movie is told in between like three romantic interests of her mom's life, and sort of focuses on this girl in her kind of clingy relationship with her mom, and gosh, this is one of those movies that I sometimes refer to as like being like really frustrating for me, because there's elements of this movie that I truly love, in particular the screenplay and the dialogue, where there are moments like after the first scene of this movie, I was like, okay, I'm gonna love this, because I think the first scene is very funny.
Where she goes to the payphone.
Yes, where she goes to the payphone and then has that conversation with Julianne Nicholson outside of the camp, which is really funny. And for me, the movie sort of like the tone and the style of the dialogue really sort of gives like Wes Anderson vibes, I think, at times. With kind of like monotonous, dry, but like really funny dialogue with like hyper smart kids kind of thing that you see in kind of a lot of Wes Anderson's work. And I really love a lot of the dialogue, the conversations. I think when it's funny, it's really funny in a very like dry, subtle way. But where it becomes frustrating is it's wrapped up in this sort of like glacier-esque pacing that I just could not really get over. And I think a lot of it is sort of like steeped in the idea that Julianne Nicholson's character is kind of like a hippie. And because she's kind of like a hippie, we have these like really long extended scenes of, like outdoor theater performances, and you get into like these really in the weeds, and like these, like one like drug induced conversation that she has that is not as interesting. And it's one of those movies that, again, like just the regular pacing of other stuff is really slow. The construction of the scenes, like there's scenes of, just this, the camera and someone doing like a mundane, simple task, and the scene is, 2 minutes long or whatever. And it's just not my style of pacing. And I think I wish this movie like really leaned a little bit more into the dialogue because I like it so much, but I just couldn't ever really get over the pacing of it all. And then also like as you move through like the relationships of Janet, the mom's life, I really think that a lot of them are just sort of mined for sort of like dry comedy as opposed to being like meaningful like dissections of relationships. So like one is sort of like, this, again, like hippie, poet or playwright kind of thing, or theater director or something like that.
Oh yeah.
One is a woman who, again, is sort of like more of a hippie kind of thing, and then the first one is just kind of like a general weirdo played by Will Patton.
Yeah.
Again, I just really. Oh, and I will say the performances are good. I think Julianne Nicholson is really good. Zoe Ziegler, who plays the girl, is like, again, talking about like Wes Anderson, like feels like pulled straight out of one of those movies. And I think is really good for her part. With kids, you never know what kind of performance you're getting, and I think she does her part well, and really handles what I think is like kind of very smart dialogue in a good way. So for me, it's a tale of like two things, which is like, I really like a lot of the dialogue, its sense of humor, but there's not enough of it for me to work, and I just feel like the pacing is just not for me.
Yeah, I mentioned very lo-fi when I start. Like, I think it's to its detriment for me. It's too slow and too quiet and too laborious at times. There is some nice dry comedy. I think Zoe Ziegler is good. I think Julianne Nicholson is really good. I like Elias Koteas as the old theater guy. I like seeing him pop up ever since Ninja Turtles back in the day. But he plays like a bearded, gentle weirdo. Like there's a scene where he like I just love the manner like he's like gently like trades a microphone for something else. Like after making some corny about the zucchinis or like it's just funny mundane shit that I liked. But man, it was tough. It was tough to get through because it's so low energy, like on purpose. Yeah. It's not, we mentioned Wes Anderson, like I get it with the kids and kind of the, preternaturally intelligent and charismatic kids, but it doesn't have that sort of energy to it. Mm-hmm. I think it's close to 2 hours long. I think maybe shaving 20 minutes off of it may have improved it a little bit. I mean, it feels very, purposeful in what it's doing, but I don't think that it necessarily, like, it spends a lot of time on scenes, which is sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't totally sit right with me. Maybe I was in a weird mood. I don't know. We watched this at screeners I watched it at home on a screener. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I did. It
does change kind of the vibe sometimes when you're not totally feeling it and you're sitting at home doing it. But I think performance wise is where it really shines. And I think that's what from what I've read, reviews have highlighted the performances over anything else, which is fine. Like Julianne Nicholson, I only really recognize from Law and Order, and I just was reading she played Weird Al's mom in Weird, the Al Yankovic story, which I had totally forgotten about. So anyway,
yeah.
What is your grade for Janet Planet, Cody?
I do think it falls into the C+ category where I don't think I could in good faith recommend it. Like I said, I'm really curious to see like if Annie Baker continues to make films, and because I think that her writing is really strong, and I again, there's so much of the script that I really like, but for me, again, it does feel like a bit of a slog. and I don't think that there's enough driving the narrative to make it interesting enough to like as a full complete thing.
Yeah, I agree. A C+ for me. You know, it's like I mentioned, it's I don't want to call it tedious, but it's a slog is probably the best word to get, you know, to illustrate what I'm talking about. It does take a long time to get where it's going, and I don't know that it has anything to say when it gets there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's effective in kind of the periodness of it. It's supposed to be 1991.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Will Patton's character says his son or something lives in California and Iraq.
Yeah,
which is a good line. I don't know. There's stuff like that peppered in there that's like really dry, clever stuff, but it's not enough as far as I'm concerned. So C+ for me. All right, that's gonna do it for this week. Next week looks like Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F. Cody.
Yeah, we may end up taking. We haven't talked about this. We may end up taking it off because I'm going to be out of town most of this upcoming week. So
I am
we
going
may
to
have
watch
to skip Axel F.
I am going to watch it though. Are you a fan of Beverly Hills Cop?
You know what? I don't know if I've seen or remember that movie. I mean, I think like my parents were really into Eddie Murphy and stuff, so I'm sure it was on in the background at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't have much recollection of like that or 48 Hours or, you know.
I've never seen 48 Hours, either 48 Hours. My dad was a huge Eddie Murphy fan.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the first Beverly Hills Cop probably a dozen times at least.
Mm-hmm.
The second one I know I saw a couple of times. The second one's like really there was this thing in the 80s where they called them comedies, but they were really action movies with jokes. Like this, like Beverly Hills Cop, and then Fletch.
Oh yeah,
is another one like that. The second movie was really more of an action movie, like with just a few jokes. It was a Tony Scott movie.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the third movie I saw once. My dad and I saw it at the theater, and it was terrible. So that was 30 years ago. So they've been hinting at some sort of fourth film for years, and that it's finally here. I haven't heard anything about it yet, so I have no idea. I know some people we know have seen it, but
same.
I've heard nothing about it.
Yeah, and it was who directed it?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's someone making a directorial debut. Mark Malloy.
Who is what is the?
Oh, it was originally supposed to be the guys who they left the movie to make Batgirl. So it's the guys who made the Bad Boys movies. They were originally the directors.
Bilal and
Bilal and Adil.
Adil and Bilal, I think is how they're billed. That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Mark Malloy, he's a Australian commercial. Oh, he directed some Quibi stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a good pedigree there.
Or where did I see this? Yeah, he directed a television series for Quibi about fake news that reputedly influenced the. It was produced. Whatever this was produced by Matt Reeves. What the hell was this show?
I don't know.
Wow, I'm gonna have to look that up. Anyway, I'm gonna watch Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. It's gonna be on Netflix. So
sweet.
I was not a fan of what was the last one? Coming to America.
Oh no, yeah, I did not
sucked.
care for that.
Especially after, because that was Craig Brewer, right? Who directed that? After he and Eddie Murphy made Dolomite Is My Name, a movie I fucking loved.
Yeah,
which was great. Anyway, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. Find us on Twitter at I don't know what I'm fucking saying. At CineSnob, Facebook, CineSnob.net, YouTube.com/CineSnob. Something else I'm probably forgetting, but
that's fine.
Anything else before we go, Cody? It's a holiday week.
Nope. Let's celebrate the holiday in style. My birthday.
Oh, that's right. You and Kiko are back to back. Because Kiko's the day before yours.
Yeah, he's tomorrow on the.
So tomorrow. What is this? What 32?
Ooh, no, it's 35.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're 10 years younger than me. That's right.
Yeah.
35. Fuck. Well, maybe you could throw your hat in the ring for president.
Oh, I forgot about that shit. All right, I
You're
got
the youth we need, Cody. All right. Anything else before we go?
No, we're good.
All right. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.